Endorsed by former Vice President Dick Cheney yesterday. Meg Whitman, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Well, thanks, Hugh. It's great to be on.
Good to have you back. That's got to be a lift to have Vice President Cheney endorse you as the absentees begin to hit ballots, mailboxes across the United States.
I think so, and I was delighted to have his endorsement. He's, a long-time Republican conservative. I was Vice President of the United States, and I was thrilled when he jumped on board.
Now, what was his biggest reason? Did he give you an idea? Because he normally does not play in Republican primaries.
Yeah. Well, I've known the Vice President for many years. He, of course, was very interested in technology and in Silicon Valley when he was Vice President, so I got to meet him on a number of occasions. So we've known each other for some time. And I think he really, really thinks that this gubernatorial election in California is absolutely essential, because what he said to me is, where goes California goes the country, and unless we get California right, I worry about the future of the country, and he thinks I am by far and away best positioned to beat Jerry Brown.
Now, I also think Jerry Brown thinks that, because he's attacking you with ads, and then at the San Francisco Chronicle Politics blog again today, he's attacking your top-to-bottom budget review. Do you find it odd that he's intervening in a Republican primary, Meg Whitman?
Well, I don't find it too odd, because I do think he thinks I am a very formidable challenger to him in the fall. And he knows I will take on the public service employee unions. He knows I will challenge the status quo in California. And he is responsible for a lot of what ails this state, going all the way back to giving the collective bargaining rights to public service employee unions. So I think he is worried. And, you can see the unions are worried, too. They've spent $2.3 million on negative ads against me in the context of a Republican primary. So I think we got him pretty riled up, would be my guess.
Now, let's start by talking about the budget. I think the reason the public employee unions are worried is because it's going to come down to the budget. Governor Schwarzenegger unveiled a draft of a budget last week that called for cuts that really stunned a lot of people. What did you make of his budget? And this is the issue of 2010. There's a lot of other issues, but it's what is California going to do about this budget? What did you think of his proposal? How would you change it?
Well, if I'd been governor, we wouldn't have been in this position, because a lot of the hard work was not done over the last several years to put ourselves in a position where revenues are greater than costs. And so I would have started with taking on the pension reforms that need to be taken on. We've got a $100 billion unfunded pension and health care liability facing us, and we're going to have to increase the retirement age, increase vesting periods. New employees are going to have to come in under a different deal, because this is perhaps the single most important issue facing California. Last year, we spent $3.3 billion of the general fund to try to solve this, pension problem. I would have reformed welfare, and I would have gotten to work on the waste and fraud in the system. You probably noticed yesterday I called for the very first statewide grand jury to go after waste and fraud in the system. And what I have discovered is, while people have talked about this and kind of know where it is, but there hasn't been any teeth. Sacramento has been a consequence-free zone, and once and for all, we're going to get after this waste and mismanagement. I mean, the waste is at least $5 or $6 billion. The mismanagement is probably in the tens of billions of dollars. I mean, here's a shocker for you. The Bay Bridge, that we have to repair?
Yes.
$5 billion overrun. It ended up costing 5 times as much as the original estimate. How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know. I want the contract, though. Meg Whitman, in terms of the Big Five, though, Jerry Brown was saying you got to get the Big Five together, all this kind of stuff. Will you be able to get the Democrats, even if there's a political earthquake? I can't see the Republicans, because of gerrymandering, getting either the Assembly or the Senate in California. How are you going to work with these people? They are addicted to their special interest money, and they are in their control.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, certainly, in this set of elections. But I'm hopeful by 2011, 2012, we will see the effects of Proposition 11, which was, of course, the redistricting to reduce the gerrymandering. But you know what? This is about leadership, in my view, Hugh. What has happened is the legislature's become a bill factory. Last year, they served up almost 2,000 pieces of legislation. The governor signed into law 700 pieces of legislation. I was with Jeb Bush at a fundraiser that he did for me the other night. Jeb couldn't believe that the governor had signed into law 700 pieces of legislation. He said, "What are they doing up there?" And the truth is, they're doing everything but tackle jobs and spending and education. So I want to veto everything that isn't on point to the crisis we face. We have got to focus on fixing the problems. And Democrats and Republicans will disagree on how to get this done, but at least we'll be working on the same problem, and we will get this done. And my view is, we just, we cannot continue to do things the same way in Sacramento.
No, we've talked many times, but I want to make sure people understand. You have ruled out tax increases as a solution.
Absolutely correct. We cannot increase taxes on Californians. In fact, I want to reduce some taxes to get people hiring, to get employers hiring again. Hugh, what's really true here is if we do not get Californians back to work, there is no way out of the budget mess. Because, of course, what happens when Californians are out of work is state revenues go down, business taxes and personal income taxes. But unlike your business, where if your revenues go down, your costs go down, state government, the costs go up. Because people are unemployed. They have unemployment insurance and welfare and other issues. We're running around $200 million a week in unemployment insurance in California. Can you believe that?
No, I actually do not know how this gets solved. I really don't. I think that you've got some ideas here, but it's so much red ink. I have no idea what you're going to do if you win.
I've identified $15 billion worth of cuts that I think are quite achievable in the near term. And fraud, in reducing, renegotiating pensions, reforming welfare, simply streamlining the government, doing more with less. You and I have talked about reducing the number of government employees. That could save $3 billion a year. There is a way forward here, but we also are going to have to fix the business climate. As I said, if we continue to lose jobs to neighboring states, if the unemployment rate goes up, you're right, there is no way out of this fix because you've got to get tax revenues up by a better business climate, and you've got to tackle the costs.
Now, California primary is June 8th. Assume that the polls are right and you win that. When does the campaign against Jerry Brown begin? I mean, he's already begun it, but what do you see as a cycle to this election? I don't know if a campaign at this intensity can be sustained for 6 months.
Well, I think we've got to come out of the box right away after the primary because former Governor Brown has some advantages here. We live in a Democrat state. He's been in politics practically longer than I have been alive, and he has not been vetted and questioned by the press. So I want to make sure that he comes forward with a plan for California. I mean, he says, well, I don't like 10-point plans. At this juncture, I'd be happy with a 1-point plan. I mean, there is nothing on his website. He has not been specific at all about how he's going to solve the problems of California. And Californians are going to want to know because this election is too important. What is the way forward here? And then we can get into a healthy debate about whether my plan is better than his plan.
Now, when the San Francisco Chronicle came out and endorsed your opponent, Steve Poizner, that probably helped you in the Republican primary, but it is also a glimpse of what's ahead with the media and this California election. What's the strategy for dealing with the Los Angeles Times, an old media elite that loves the name Brown and loves the left-wing sort of status quo?
Well, I mean, what I have learned in politics is nothing is ever what it appears to be.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think, the endorsement of the Chronicle is absolutely what you said, is that, they would very much prefer to have Jerry Brown as the governor, so they would prefer to run against the weaker opponent in the primary, and that's why the unions, as we've discussed, are getting engaged in the primary in ways that they rarely do. So, what I need to do is get our message out to the voters. No one has worked harder than I have in the primary. I've done over 400 campaign events, 300 press events. I'm out every day doing 3 or 4 events. I'm actually calling you from Bakersfield today, and I was in Fresno this morning. So we will continue to get the message out. We will rely on radio, television, on the Internet. Our website, www.megwhitman.com, I'm very proud of it. I think it is one of the very best political websites that has ever been developed. It's got all kinds of features and functionality and fun content and discussion boards. I think it really is state-of-the-art. And so we're going to continue to work that hard as well. We'll also rely on our endorsements. The California Restaurant Association endorsed me. The California Farm Bureau endorsed me. These are huge organizations with big memberships that are very interested in the reforms that I want to make that will make farming in California more productive and more profitable and put the restaurant and hospitality business, back on its feet through things like, workplace flexibility rules, working around meal and rest periods, doing things for that industry that has just, the regulation is crippling a very important industry in California.
Meg Whitman, we will continue to check in, and congratulations on the Dick Cheney endorsement. Thanks for stopping by today. MegWhitman.com. I'll be right back, America. Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post joins me next as we go heavy into Washington.